suffering of the people, they don't care. But their party's embarrassment is something that they value far more than the suffering of the people. They're still playing games. I think they've reached the limit, because they would have been exposed on the floor of the house, you know. Besides this whole halabula about Delhi win, it would have been pushed to the background. We are all for territorial integrity. That has been the consistent position. I think in the government of India's positions since Atal Bihari Vajpayee's time is also the similar kind of thing. I think the present government will not dare. A separate administration is a proposition which is against the ethos of this country. Any form of political arrangement based on exclusivist identity politics or a communal identities is unacceptable in this country, is a danger. They always thrive on polarization of society. That's what they have done in Manipur. Christians and Hindus and tribals and non-tribals. Remember that there's many of these cookie armed groups. The BJP has sought help from them to win elections. We can think about that form of decentralization for effective administration to meet the aspirations of the people, but never should we support communally founded political agendas. Can Hindus say that we can't live with the Muslims? Muslims say we can't live together with the Hindus. Sikhs says we can't live with the Hindus in Punjab. This is a blot. This Manipur crisis is not a Manipur issue. It has revealed the weakness, the way we look at our country, different parts of our country. Whatever happened so far, Modi and Saha should take full responsibility, because they are the one who have been in cahoot with this government, Manipur. They have been doing it together. Do we realize in the rest of the country, or you wanted to jump into this bandwagon of a split narrative, Kuki as victim, Maitai as perpetrator, or Maitai is as victim, Kuki as perpetrator? Is it a normal situation hota? Then I would have definitely expected, they have learned it, they are trying to do a corrective measure. Since the blatant manner in which constitutional propriety has been thrown into the dustbin, and the contemptuous manner in which the suffering of the people has been sought to be made invisible, all these things do not give me that confidence that these people will learn the lesson.
Hello and welcome to HD's weekly talk show, The Interview. Too little, too late? Or is it a case of shutting the stable door after the horse has bolted? Or was it fear of facing the proposed no confidence motion? Various theories are doing the rounds on why Chief Minister of Manipur, Biren Singh, resigned suddenly. The state has been on fire, literally, for nearly 2 years now. We have with us Congress Member of Parliament from Inner Manipur, Bimol Akoijam, to speak to us about recent developments, including Biren Singh's resignation, in this edition of HD's weekly talk show, The Interview. Welcome to the show, Mr. Bimol Akoijam, and thank you for being here with us.
Thank you, it's my pleasure.
Let me begin with what is top of the mind. What do you make of Mr. Biren Singh's resignation? Is it too little, too late?
You know, it's not a question of too little, too late. I think it is part of the whole unfortunate saga that we have experienced during this crisis. There is definitely a schism within his party. Quite obviously, he lost the confidence of his own party men. And that may be the reason why his bosses in Delhi, Amit Shah and Modi, had no choice but to make him resign,
Do you think this decision was more political? Because as you say, the situation has been bad to worse for the past 2 years. And his resignation should have happened much earlier. So do you think the timing is surprising, and did his resignation also come as a surprise?
No, it didn't come as a surprise. I think they've reached the limit because they would have been exposed on the floor of the house, you know.
So, what do you make of the timing of Mr. Biren Singh's resignation? Would you say that it is politically calculated, knowing that he would lose the no confidence motion?
That's part of the story. And besides that, in the discussions, the misdoing of this government and what Delhi is doing, what the state government is doing would have come quite openly in the assembly because it is going to be exposed. They can't lie, you know. These are the two sides of the story. And if there is a no confidence motions and they are scared that despite the fact that party has, you know, we have only 5 members, you know that there is a fracture. So they lost confidence among themselves. And that's why they did move in that sense, a desperate attempt to avoid embarrassment. Besides this whole halabula about Delhi win, would have been pushed to the background. I think that's also one of the reasons why they have done this.
So, two sides of the story or more, because one is the internal rift within the BJP, with some of the MLAs saying that they would sit in the opposition. The other, of course, is, as you said, the fear of losing the proposed no confidence motion. What about the alleged tapes which the Supreme Court has ordered should be?
That, I think, that is because that doesn't have an immediate effect. The immediate effect is that once the session starts, they will get exposed. I'm saying it's not only about losing the no confidence motion, but also the fact that people will get to know what they have been doing. They are trying to avoid that. But they're desperate, that's why. They're desperately trying to save their image, you know, avoid the embarrassment that would have come. Suffering of the people, they don't care. But their party's embarrassment is something that they value far more than the suffering of the people. They're still playing games.
You don't think the alleged tapes have a role?
No, I don't think this is, because this is just Supreme Court has ordered it. That report has to come after that. That's why the immediate effect, I don't think it plays a role. It does constitute a pressure, but it's not a significant one for this decision.
So, what you are saying is that it is a politically motivated move.
Yeah, obviously, of a very narrowed, I would say, unethical political move.
You know, another view is that the timing of the resignation is wrong because it would strengthen the cookie demand for division and it would give a boost to the separatist forces.
That's what some people will say. I think they don't understand the issue. First of all, that they have demanded his resignation because it will also get exposed in some sense whether Biren has been an excuse to pursue a divisive communal politics. That can also be the other side of the story. You know, now that Biren is gone, that excuse is gone now. So, you know, things will come out very openly. I can sense that now. And UT demand, because the issues around UT demand, the resistance from the people of the state itself, or the political party's commitment. For example, my own parties, we are all for territorial integrity. That has been the consistent position. I think the government of India's position since Atal Bihari Vajpayee's time is also the similar kind of thing. I think the present government will not dare to divide the state, because that would be unthinkable consequences. You will face it. So everybody knows about it.
You know, when you use the word division of the state, that may be a little strong or an extreme way of looking at what would be a separate administration demand.
No, there are two ways of it. When you say union territory, quite obviously there will be a split of the territory of the state. Otherwise, you will not have a union territory. So that is why I'm saying it is out of questions. The second one is also separate administration. What does it mean? You know, it is not, logically speaking, in this country, we do talk about decentralizations to fulfill people's aspiration in terms of better access to goods and services of the state, and to have a certain amount of sense of participation and control in terms of governing their lives, which is part of the decentralization, local self-governments and so on. These are, positions that is familiar with it, but what we face in the state is not exactly like this. It is founded upon exclusivist communal identity. which this country cannot afford. This sort of an argument based on cultural, that too a sort of an exclusivist identity politics, it will open a Pandora's box this country cannot afford. I mean, we cannot found our administrative arrangement on communal identities. That's very clear. So this idea of a separate administration founded on such kind of a communal exclusivist identity is unacceptable. It's not about Manipur. It's a stated position of many in this country. Northeast have suffered because the government of India has followed certain kind of position, which can be called an ethnicization of all grievances in politics, and which led to what is popularly called the balkanization of India's northeast. So I think that is a danger. And then many people thought that it is only in the northeast, but increasingly people will realize that this will have repercussion in the entire country. So in that sense, a separate administration is a proposition which is against the ethos of this country. Any form of political arrangement based on exclusivist identity politics or a communal identities is unacceptable in this country, is a danger.
Point well taken. But when you speak of communalism, don't you think the government in the center, the BJP, does actually thrive on communal politics?
That's quite obvious. They always thrive on polarization of society. That's what they have done in Manipur. Christians and Hindus and tribals and non-tribals, and they play both the games. Remember that there's many of these cookie armed groups. The BJP has sought help from them to win elections. And this side, they position themselves as defender of the Meitei communities and so on. They promise political benefits if you support us. So they have played their games, and we are paying the price for this kind of a political culture.
So, against this backdrop, don't you think the separate administration, whatever it may mean, actually fits into their game plan?
Yeah, that's what it is part of that. It is part of that. That is why we have to resist. This is a general resistance in the entire country. No polarization, no political demand based on communal exclusivist agenda. But you can talk about in the ways and means through which the citizens can get better access to wealth and services of the state, as well as to have a sense of participatory democracy in terms of running their affairs, which is embedded in our local self-government principles, whether be that district councils or the panchayati raj or municipal cooperation. These ideas are there. So we can think about that form of decentralizations for effective administration to meet the aspirations of the people, but never should we support communally founded political agendas.
What about the BJP?
That's what we are resisting. This country is taken into a very different directions, So this exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state. Perhaps they think that culturally also, they are trying to separate one Hindu group from the non. And you can see that language. Look at the word, you instead of saying inter-community problem, you call it ethnic. Ethnicity or ethnic has become a preferred term. Why is that in the rest of the country you use the term communal class, inter-community issue, but in the Northeast you happily use the word ethnic conflict. And in polity also you have always been balkanizing the reason on these kind of within quote ethnic communal lines more actively. You see, that has been an old problem with us. So if you are truly decolonizing it, you should be able to reframe this issue as inter-community rather than ethnic. The worst thing is that many of the people in this country, including ministers and intellectuals, said that, it has an old history. They have these ethnic classes, it's been part of their life. And it's so embarrassing. We talk about decolonization, including this government. And you keep on saying that this is an essential problem. They have been part and parcel of this state. Just as a European colonial thinker used to do, Hindu-Muslim is an essential part. Ye to usi ka ek hissa hai. Purana is natural hai. That we are doing the same thing in the Northeast.
Exactly my point. So, somewhere coming back to what I asked about the cookie demand for, you can call it separate administration, you can call it decentralization, really gets a revival after Biren Singh's resignation. Is that right or no?
No, no, no. That is what I'm saying, that decentralized, we have to frame it again. But some people are still pushing for it. By the way, separate administration, now it's been become very popular. It's a misinformation in the entire country. It is not a product of this conflict. Demand for this exclusivist agenda has been building up years ago. This has been going on for a long time. You see, and once a crisis happened, many of these cookie, unfortunately elected members, instead of calling for peace, within barely 1 week, they came up with this demand for separate administration, and they are tom-tomming everywhere saying that we are separated, we can't live together. The rest of the country did not object to this, surprisingly. Can Dalits say that we can't live together with the rest of the country? Can Hindus say that we can't live with the Muslims? Muslims say we can't live together with the Hindus. Sikh says we can't live with the Hindus in Punjab. If we do that, will you accept it? It's not. It's a nonsense. As long as you are citizens of this country, you are bound to work either in the army, security forces, in government offices, institutions like university system. What do you mean by that you can't live together? But you have been allowing, people have been allowing this kind of a dangerous articulation as if it is a normal, justifiable argument. You can register your grievances. You can think about better access to the wealth and the services of the state as a citizen. You can also demand for better participation in the governance. Those things can be discussed, those things can be objectively addressed. But unfortunately, what we have seen in the last 21 months is that nonsensical argument, two citizens group, you are saying that we can't live together, we are separated. Instead of confronting this argument that they have allowed. This is a blot. This Manipur crisis is not a Manipur issue. It has revealed the weakness, the way we look at our country, different parts of our country.
So, what has been the role of the state and the central government in this?
No, they are in cahoot with each other, the so-called double engine. The powerful engine is dragging the piche wala. Sometimes it gets benefit, so it hook onto it. Sometimes it gets irritated, so notanki karke, they will just start raising some issues in between. But by and large, I have been calling this a local satrap. It's ruled by proxy. You need to have an honest relook into the way you have handled Manipur's crisis. Overall, the way you treat Northeast generally, the way we look at it.
Handled or willfully mishandled?
No, I think it is because of a hangover of the colonial categories in the mindset. I'm very clear about this. 1947 is not merely the end of colonialism. The colonialism continues as a state of mind, is a psychological phenomena. I have said this in the floor of the house also. India was an anthropological subject, not a historical subject, in the eyes of the European colonial epistemology, their knowledge system. The same thing applies in India. Northeast is never part of history, but it is in a subject matter of anthropology. In Indian History Congress, it was kept aside. In the earlier period, check it where Indian history, how Northeast has dealt with it. This exclusion, various forms of exclusion, clearly tells you that there is a continuity of a mindset, an outlook and practices rooted in all colonial scheme of things. We have not been able to decolonize. As long as you are not able to decolonize the way we look at India's Northeast, decolonization in this country will remain incomplete.
Let's fast forward to 2025 and let me ask you, do you see a constitutional crisis in the state and do you feel that the president's rule is the only immediate answer?
Two things I must say as far as the president rule. In principle, I am against it, anywhere in the country. And Baba Sahib Ambedkar also followed the same thing. This is supposed to be used in the rarest of the rare cases. Now, does it apply in Manipur? It is a self-created problem by themselves. What they should have done is, one, Biren Singh resigned. They should have put up an alternate CM and, take charge of it and correct their mistakes, what they have been doing it so far. For me, at one level, president's rule will be good. at one condition. It will expose that they are the one who have been doing this proxy rule all this while with a willing scapegoat. Now they have no option. So they have to come themselves and take the entire blames. Whatever happened so far, Modi and Saha should take full responsibility, because they are the one who have been in cahoot with this government, Manipur, now dismissed government or resigned. They have been doing it together. So these are equally responsible.
Responsibility apart, do you see or would you say that currently there is a constitutional crisis in the state?
It's not exactly. Today you will get to sense. If they call the assembly or put under suspension, there's no crisis. But you remember that if they have this, put the state assembly under suspended animation, it is not because of the law and order problem, constitutional mechanism, we are not able to function. It's simply because their party is politically so corrupt that despite the tragedy of the people, they are squabbling among themselves and they can't have a proper, they have the majority, they should have been able to put up a CM for themselves. So it's not a constitutional crisis. It is this corrupt politics that they are doing it, and they are saving their skin and embarrassment, saving themselves from embarrassment, far more important than the suffering of the people. That's what is being reflected right now.
You know, one view is that another leader from the Metis to replace Biren Singh would be like old wine in new bottle. Do you agree with that perception?
I don't know. I'm just hoping that, lesser evil among them, because since they have the majority, the people have voted them to power. Because you have no option, because people have voted them, so they have to, the CM has to come from them.
You know, with Biren Singh gone, do you think the dialogue will now resume between the warring communities?
I think far more than the dialogue, my condition is that the governments should do what it ought to do. A semblance of state must be restored. A constitutional order must be restored. The authority of the state must be asserted. People roaming around with guns and threatening and intimidating people, and people are unable to move from one place to another. This is something that Constitution has given. Article 19, free movement, isn't it? Life, right to life. Article 2021. What happened to Manipur? For me, as far as I understand the situation, far more than being a inter-community issue, what Manipur has been facing over the last 21 months, it's a big-time subversion of the constitutional order. And that too through what through a process that smacks of what, the well-known scholar Parthu Chatterjee called it rule of colonial difference, that distinguishes, they applies the constitution differently. Law is applied differently between the so-called mainlanders, mainstream and the northeast. If you have applied the same constitutional schemes and principles, Manipur issue would not have happened like this.
So there is heft or there is basis of saying that the problems the BJP is trying to tackle, which you may not agree or you may disagree, are actually inherited and inherent. So it's not of the BJP making. So to blame the BJP in that sense, the central government, would be somehow unfair?
No. They have to take squarely responsible for this. See that when you do an analysis of the problem, it goes back to colonial practices. The so-called division between hill and valley, which doesn't make sense. I have given this example. Take Nainital and Dehradun. One is around 2,000 meters high above the sea level, Nainital, and the Dehradun is barely 640 meters above the sea level. Both of them are called hilly areas. Imphal is higher than Dehradun, and it is part of the mountainous region of the Himalayan fall. Imphal is 800 plus meters. Dehradun is 640. How is that Imphal is treated like a plain? And Churachandpur, which is barely 900 meters, is considered as a hill. There are false categories being created by the colonial state, and many of these things, instead of reversing it, we have been building on that. So if you do an analysis, it goes back to, but who takes charge of dealing with here and now? Is the BJP government. If they have timely intervened, judiciously acted and carried out their Raj Dharma and constitutional responsibility, this issue would not have happened in this fashion.
Let me ask you to elaborate or decode two of your statements. The first, people in Manipur are playing football with assault rifles. And the second, the state and the union government is speaking in different voices. And you have said, I don't know what to expect.
If they have learned a mistake through this compulsion that they are confronting right now, they have been compelled to make their satrap to resign. Otherwise, this Modi Shah would have protected and continued the same drama. Now, they had no option because it has reached a limit now. Thankfully, because they have been trying to push this crisis as non-event, so they will not talk about it. Because once you talk about it, it becomes an issue. People recognize and acknowledge it, but they don't want to acknowledge. So they wanted to push it under the carpet. So President's speech doesn't mention it. They don't want to have a discussion on Manipur. I have demanded for a JPC. It deserves to have a JPC, which will only give a more powerful inquiry than many of the judicial commission and so on. Court-driven inquiry, and it's ज़्यादा ये strength तो JPC से होगा, isn't it? That kind of thing, they don't want to do anything. They wanted to push it under the carpet, Manipur crisis. But what happened is, because the opposition has come back more strongly, so we have been pressing this. We are making sure that they don't push it under the carpet. And people in Manipur also have reached a point. Their frustration has reached a point. Because of that compulsion, they landed up in this situation. They had to force their favorite to resign. What I am saying is that if they have learned lesson from here, and do a corrective measures, is something that I can expect. But given their track record, I am keeping that my fingers crossed. That's what I mean. I don't know what to expect. If it's a normal situation hota, then I would have definitely expected, they have learned it, they are trying to do a corrective measure. Since the blatant manner in which constitutional propriety has been thrown into the dustbin, and the contemptuous manner in which the suffering of the people has been sought to be made invisible, all these things do not give me that confidence that these people will learn the lesson. But I am still hoping against all odds that they'll learn through this position where we compel them to learn it. If they picked up, well and good, then we are ready to work together for a better future and peaceful state. And as far as that people playing with football, with
Assault
rifles in this cookie areas in Kangpokpi, people have been turning a blind eye. The first assault rifle in this crisis, which was captured on camera, was on the 3rd of May 2023 in Torbung area. Those were Kuki militants or Kuki armed groups, probably part of these groups who are under SU. And Government of India has that images with them. But instead of that, a lot of people say arm looted from Imphal, and which is a fact. But you forget that the first looting happened in Churachandpur. The first assault rifle was seen in Torbung areas. And people were armed to the teeth on both sides later on. And instead has been a mute spectator to this hangama. And people were taking partisan position. Maitais. It's very unfortunate. History will record this. The so-called mainstream intellectuals, I have seen video recording, inciting people to fight. I have seen this in the name of some minority and so on, and then turning this picture as if it is belong to the Maitai and so on. They have played with these images. This propaganda machine that has worked, we have not cross-checked it. And this is happening now. You are supposed to assert your authority. And this is where, if the central government, did Constitution say anything about this?
So would you say mute spectator, or would you say being hand in glove?
Government of India is complicit in this problem, this crisis. That's why they don't do it. But unfortunate part is, do we realize in the rest of the country? Or you wanted to jump into this bandwagon of a split narrative, Kuki as victim, Maitai as perpetrator, or Maitai as victim, Kuki as perpetrator, and then arm looted, and forget about these arms moving around in the hill areas. You have been playing with this narrative game. And then you said Biren without even realizing what he is doing actually. How this man has been protected by Amit Shah duo. Under the constitution, had the central government not done that, no state would have been allowed to burn like this. They would have taken according to all the measures that constitution provides them. They don't do it. You subvert the state autonomy at one level. propped up one man, which becomes a convenient tool for others to build up a narrative of a persecution. Am I making sense? Now that he is gone, I have started hearing these people saying that whether he is gone or not doesn't matter, we will demand.
Finally, what could a normalization roadmap in Manipur look like? What is the way forward? And what are the key issues which need to be addressed?
The first thing is the state must come in. The rate of the state must work. We are not a banana republic, but you have reduced Indian state, the fifth largest economy, fourth, the strongest military in the world, into a banana republic in the state of Manipur by the government of India. If the government of India decided we will not be a banana republic, they would have done what is ought to be done. Assert its authority and ensure that the state runs according to the constitution and people gets the protection under the constitution, their lives and property. That the government of India has failed. If you think that state government has failed, you should have taken the right actions. What is available in your constitutions. You did not do that because you propped up, because you yourself is implicated. So it's not Biren alone. They should take full responsibility for the innocent lives that have been lost. Their hands are, with the bloods of innocent people.
So, what is the roadmap? What is the way forward?
Disarm. Make it sure that this is control. Because otherwise nothing can be done. Then only once you control, rein in these forces and violence, then sensible voice will have a scope to speak up, to talk. And next is, do not brush aside. There are critical issues that the state have confronted. This must be addressed. Legitimately, judiciously, it must be addressed. Cases like deforestation. It has serious implication for the environmental issues, the flood in the valley, the erosion of soil, landslides, everything is affected. Deforestation is one big issue in Manipur. Then we have this influx of foreign elements, which the union government also admitted it. So there must be a serious attempt to delineate citizens from the non-citizens, deal with these illegal immigrants. As long as you have a nation state and citizenship, you should be able to delineate who is a citizen and who is not. So illegal immigrants is one big issue that we need to do, a judicious and objective, legitimate process to delineate them, but not to demonize communities in the name of, without doing that, just rhetorics and demonizing communities will not work. Third, drug is a huge issue. It's not only spoiling the youths, but our politics, our political culture, everything gets affected by this illicit drugs and its money. It's not only about plantations. It must be objectively dealt with it. Government of India must take this as a national security issue. Just as I said, you should not reduce Manipur into a Rwandan type of a crisis. You should not make Colombia or Latin American kind of a issue or Afghan kind of a issue in your border states. So Government of India must take firm action. The rest of the country is not Manipur's problem. So drug is another big issue that we have. The fourth issue is we have this grievances of the people of different communities. There are perceived or real sense of differential treatment and differential development patterns. It must be objectively assessed, not succumbing to or giving into communal arguments, because there are enough data which indicates that many of these arguments are based on falsehood, just to incite communal identity politics, nothing else. But you must address this issue. For one, I know minor tribes suffers, but some tribes usurp all these advantages and access to the corridors of power, disproportionate to their population. I don't want to name it. In the name of scheduled tribe, you cannot articulate a position like that, and then you have to objectively assess what is the status of various communities, including Meiteis. That simply being a Meitei doesn't mean that they have the advantage. So this needs to be done. An objective assessment should be instituted. These are four key issues as I see it. The fifth one is a long-standing issue we have. We have an armed conflict situations. We don't want to recognize it. We have been treating it as a law and order problem. There are political armed groups that must be addressed politically. Don't reduce into a simple law and order or normal criminal. You cannot do that. And you must, in the process, when you do this next step forward, you must delineate our village volunteers. These are civilians who are forced to defend themselves because the state has absorbed its of its responsibility. But we also have different from these two groups, political armed groups and the village volunteer. There are miscreants and criminals propped up by political parties and others. You've seen during my election. They are not defending Manipur, they are not defending Kun or village or civilians. They are acting according to the instruction of their political bosses. You can see them in their words and deeds. These people, along with those Sioux group who have been running, wild, breaking all the ground rules and others, they must be taken care of by the state. And last but not the least, this is the initiate part. You must immediately start doing concrete steps to deal with those people in the relief camp, those people who have lost near and dear ones, their properties. Government of India must immediately do concrete steps to rehabilitate them, to deal with their present crisis. This is a 6. 7, the economy of the state has been completely destroyed. There should be an incentives so that we get more investment. So economy, you should have a special package to deal with, probably a tax exemption for 10 years. For the state of Manipur, this is going to have a far-reaching implication. So economy has to be taken care of through special measures. So these are the 7 key issues that I see that we must follow immediately.
Mr. Bimol Akoijam, thank you for your time, thank you for being here with us, and thank you for decoding the complex issues the state of Manipur is facing.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.